Good morning and welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, where we covenant to weave together the fabric of community from the strands of our separate lives. We are an inclusive, welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I am Kathy Cacavalli, your Sunday Service Associate for this service, and I have just a few announcements to share. You may have noticed that a giving tree is now set up in the Great Hall. Please take a tag and return the gifts by December 9th. This will benefit the Morris County Correctional Facility Chaplaincy Program, a great cause. On December 3rd, next Saturday, from 9 to noon, there will be a discussion on the Children and Youth Faith Formation Program. And then on Sunday, December 4th, from 10 to 2, we'll have our second annual Gifts and Giving Fair. Come shop for gifts while learning about the social justice work of our partners. And finally, at the service, after the second service on December 4th, we will have the Odyssey Project featuring Allison Chase. Thank you.
In the Old Testament, there's a moment at which Moses encounters a burning bush, and it gets his attention. But does it get his attention? A Rabbi, Lawrence Kushner, says the story of the burning bush is actually specifically about attention. It's about the experience of opening one's eyes and looking over an extended period of time. Kushner writes, God wanted to find out if Moses was capable of paying attention to something for more than a few minutes. I wonder if that's maybe why God said to Moses, take off your shoes. Rabbi Kushner says, there is another world hidden right here within this one, whenever we pay attention. We light our chalice now, and I have some of our children who are assisting me in lighting the chalice this morning. You would light this for me, and then the other can light the chalice. Why don't you light the candle? Very good. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to blow it out. Thank you. Thank you. Please join us in reciting our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is our law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I would say that was paying attention. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and it's so good to see you on this different Sunday. The Sunday after Thanksgiving is always a little different, and I'm always glad to see folks on that Sunday afterward when we're still hopefully warm with a sense of gratitude. It seemed really a good time to sing Spirit of Life, number 1, 2, 3. Please stand and body your spirit.
Spirit of life, come unto
When we light our chalice, we're lighting we light the chalice. This is a centuries-old symbol, even though the Unitarian Universalist Association adopted it only in the 1960s, early 1960s. The symbol itself dates far back, back into the 1500s in Bohemia. It's a symbol that comes from the communion chalice originally, and for us, with its flame, it's come to represent many things. Represents that fire of commitment, as one of our hymns says in its title and its words. It represents the spirit of a people gathered in curiosity, in love, in the words of your covenant. And it represents what community can do that we cannot do alone, which is better see the world, better be known for who we are. This time of milestones and passages is another aspect of that, of being known and to knowing one another. We bring many joys, many sorrow, many life experiences in a morning like this. Most of them aren't shared, but on the days that we do want them shared, you can always fill out at the welcome table one of these, and I will read these words. You can email me this Saturday before, and I will include a milestone. This milestone from Kathy, this is about Madison School?
No, town.
Madison Town won the Sustainable Jersey Champion Award for the third time since I've been in charge of the committee in 2019. Congratulations to also my town, now where I'm living.
Yes, your town too.
Madison, yes, very good, Madison. And for being so forward-looking with our volunteers. Being so good.
Administration.
And administration, yeah. And as we pay attention to the world and to the needs of our own children and youth, what better time to be looking at sustainability, something also important to this congregation. And the passages, again, this week we had shootings, and this time in a Walmart. I acknowledge it and acknowledge the trauma that we all experience with those losses of that sense of safety, the losses of those lives, the empty seats at Thanksgiving tables. Spirit of life, we gather here on Sundays. We're a people who are sometimes skeptical about what it is we're seeing, what it is that catches our attention. We can be a skeptical people about religion. For the most part, we trust spirituality, but maybe not so much religion. We call this a meeting room. We call this community, a fellowship. What must it be like when the interim minister keeps saying Sunday worship service, adding that word in, worship? An ancient word, worth Skype, worth noticing. Predates Christianity, just to pay attention to where it came from. What is worthy of our attention as a people? Perhaps those who lit the chalice this morning and others their age. The youth who will be upstairs later this morning. The friends we see here week to week, month to month. There are others in our communities who are not seen. How might we create a larger world, a larger community in which all are seen and known and know they are loved? May the light of this chalice in this holiday season cast that kind of hope for our community within us and in the world around us. that we are all worthy of love, that we all need to know we are worthy of love. For all this, for all the love that is within and among us, and all the cares we bring with us, we give thanks. Say, so be it. Amen. Blessed be. Now, I love this hymn. I'm going to invite you to stand in body or in spirit for singing this. It's entitled Hush. It's number 1040 in the Blue Book. Normally, I like it if you're looking up, but if you're like me and you want to see the words more closely, I invite you to open the book. 1040. And Beth was going to help us a little bit with the pitch and the sense of music.
Somebody's calling my
really well. I don't know if you can hear it on what it sounded like online, but these guys, your hearts were there. Thank you, which I think does justice to our African American ancestors, spiritual ancestors, who gave us that music this morning. Hush.
I am privileged to share a reading with you this morning from one of my favorite people, Mary Oliver, The Summer's Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your own wild and precious life? And now, please plan to give generously as we have our offering, which will be split 50-50 with the Fellowship and Homeless Solutions, which provides shelter services and supportive housing to the homeless and working poor in Morris County, providing a hand up, not a hand out. And let us enjoy the offertory melody by Jules Massenet.
Thank you, Bev. I've always loved that poem by Mary Oliver. Can you imagine holding a grasshopper in your hand, and there it is eating a cube of sugar, and its jaws are going like that? And I'm remembering like long summer days, we're literally falling down into the grass and looking at grasshoppers. I remember once the youth of in the Denver area were going on their annual spiritual journey that they did, and the Denver area congregations even had a bus for their trip. And we would go around, the ministers would get together as the bus was about to depart, and we would bless the bus. We would give it a lot of blessings, because that old engine, it was, sometimes they'd spend an overnight in an unexpected place because the engine maybe didn't hold up. And I read this poem, and I remember saying to the youth, reading it to the youth on the bus, and saying to them, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And they stared at me very quietly. It caught my attention recently. I like to read The Atlantic, and about 2 months ago, a professor of psychology, Jean Twenge, wrote, "More comfortable in their bedrooms than in a car or at a party, today's teens are physically safer than teens have ever been. Psychologically, however, they are more vulnerable. Rates of teen depression have skyrocketed since 2011. It's not an exaggeration," she writes, "to describe the I generation as being on the brink of the worst mental health crisis in decades. And much of this deterioration can be traced to their phones." You know, I have found, I really noticed it coming here when I got to be here, the interim minister here with the Morristown Fellowship. The roads aren't laid out in a grid like they are back in the Midwest. So learning the roads, at first I was really glad for my smartphone. But then I found I was not learning how the roads worked every time I left the smartphone on, and so finally I had to turn it off. And actually I turned Siri off, because Siri would come up and say something like, "You want some directions?" I'd be quiet, I'm paying attention. And only after I paid attention did I actually figure out where the roads go in my community. But that's not what they want from us on these smartphones, smart-ass phones. You know, they want you kind of scrolling. In fact, there's a term for when, like during an election, I find myself scrolling and scrolling. I'm like, is there any good news in here? Is there any good news? It's doom scrolling, I think they call it. But that's kind of the point, as it turns out. The more our attention is on these screens or on our computer screens, the more money that Google or Amazon or Yahoo or Facebook, those guys make money off of us giving our attention to them. We think we're getting things for free. I think if we were to recast the idea of vampires, that maybe we could rethink what the vampire might look like. Every time we click on, like we hit clickbait, some really, that's a story, that's a thing, and you click on it, and then there's a series of ads in between each sentence, and you have to click again and again and again. Tell me what you pay attention to, and I will tell you who you are. There's this timeless and universal spiritual principle, which is to see the world, to truly pay attention to it. As the Buddha said, to be awake. I love this reading. A student is looking for the Buddha, doesn't realize he's met him, but recognizes something special about the person he's just met. and asks, "My friend, what are you? Are you a celestial being or a god?" "No," says the Buddha. "Are you some kind of magician or wizard?" Again, the Buddha answers, "No." "Are you a man?" "No." "Are you a woman?" "No." I added that. "Are you non-gender?" I added that too. To which he said no. "Well, my friend, what are you?" The Buddha replied, "I am awake." This being awake, this practice of attention is a practice that appears in all the world's religions that I'm aware of. It has many names. In Buddhism, it can be called mindfulness. And in Christianity, even now, we are entering the Advent season, a time in which Christians spend the next 28 days, actually not quite 28 days, the days from now until Christmas, paying attention. And it's interesting that the word minister, I am the interim minister of the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And the word ministry in its original Latin didn't come to us as a theological term originally. It came as a practice. To minister in the ancient Latin meant to attend to pay attention. My job is to be attentive. Ministry requires an ability to see with an open heart, an open mind, a vulnerable soul. Years ago, I read these words by Richard Sandor. He was a physician in California, and he wrote about being a new physician in a hospital. And he wrote, "I always felt it was a privilege to attend to the ill, but I didn't really understand what that meant until a dear friend died. After a diagnosis of inoperable cancer, she asked me, 'Can you help me die at home?' I'd never seen anyone die naturally before." He then writes how he began to truly pay attention. "It seems to me that if there is anything unique," he wrote, "about being an attending physician, it is the force with one's daily work, demanding a vision of the direction of an inner, genuine development. This sense of myself is perhaps the first function of an active attention. One night, many years ago," he writes, "during duty in an emergency room, I was awakened by a call to see another patient, yet another patient. I made my way to the emergency room to see a mother and her 8-year-old son. Before I could say a word, the woman informed me her boy needed a shot of penicillin and he needs it right now. In a flash, I took in the whole scene, reading their faces, their postures, almost like we were in a play. The mother was tired and angry. Her son was complaining of a sore throat. She suspected he was faking it, so she had threatened him with getting a shot. I saw all of this in a flash as I questioned them, and I saw that my role was not limited to treating illness. So I ordered tests, and while we waited for results, I asked his mother how she was, because I wanted to know. Tearfully, she described the difficulties of raising her son alone and keeping a full-time job. As we talked, she edged closer to her son and began rubbing his back. This scene has remained alive in my memory for years, for on that occasion, I truly attended. It's the very stuff of life to be seen. I always admired Buddhism, although I could never call myself a Buddhist. And that happened when I had the privilege of being an at-home parent when my children were first born, when my children were very little children in arms. And their mother did not want to be an at-home parent with infants and was very happy to have me stay at home. and holding a little child and realizing how important it is for that child to be seen, to be known, to have the attention of a caregiver. I was very, very attached to my children. And I couldn't quite make sense of Buddhism, which told me I shouldn't be attached. And I thought, now I'm being attached to this kid because I don't want to hurt him. I don't want him to grow up and no attachment. In fact, it's not just about good parenting or perhaps the desire to have friends and be seen in a moment when we light chalice and have the marking of milestones and passages. It's a matter of life and death. Bruno Bettelheim was a survivor of Nazi concentration camps, and he wrote of the experiences he had in them. And he wrote of the importance of attention for the people imprisoned in these camps. He wrote, wanting to go on living, even in so terrible a situation, keeping respect for oneself, and with that, respect for others, just to maintain hope. For this, we had to hold on to the belief we were not abandoned. Any scrap of evidence was sufficient that suggested someone cared. It was so vitally important for survival to believe that we had not been forsaken. It's not easy to pay attention. But I love I love the kind of scientific allegory of it. You know, having grown up a humanist and studied the scientific method even in religious education programming. When I got older, I began reading a little. I have always continued to read about science, and I try to understand quantum physics. Believe me, I don't really understand quantum physics. I'm not sure anybody does, but one of the amazing things is there's these subatomic particles, quanta, specifically called kaons. Don't ask me what a kaon is. All I know is it's like smaller than an electron, but they exist according to physicists. And the interesting thing about kaons is that when two are simultaneously created, which human beings can do in this giant machine called a particle accelerator, they have a spin to them, apparently, something that's called a spin. And what's interesting is that before we see what the spin is, the spin is maybe going left or right, or it's just going the way it goes, but we don't know. Or maybe it doesn't even have one. But what's fascinating is as soon as we look at one of the kaons, the other kaon gets the opposite spin. It always does. One spins in one direction, the other one always spins in the other direction. And when we look at it, we observe it, one gets one direction and the other one gets another direction, and they communicate so fast that it happens faster than the speed of light. Maybe that's more science than you wanted to hear on a Sunday morning after Thanksgiving meal, but the thing that I find so amazing about it is that the process of seeing, the process of being aware of this particle and its spin changes another part of the universe. And that other kaon could be light years, hundreds, thousands of light years away, and it would change its spin instantly. Now, I don't want to stretch my excitement about that too far and say, oh, maybe there's something about mental telepathy in that, but physicists would groan if I did that. But as an actual condition found in nature, it's amazing to me that when we look at the world, we look at the universe, we look at each other, we change one another in the seeing. And we are changed when we are seen. So I'm thinking about those young adults, those high schoolers in their bedrooms, safe in body, but sucked into these vampiric things their attention, their loves, their connections with each other attenuated somehow or shifted for the purposes of money making for Google or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And I'm told that for some of our youth and young adults, that it's frightening even to come to a place like the fellowship for a worship service on a Sunday morning. What do you guys do in a worship service or a Sunday service? You can watch it online, but it does feel different when you're in person. One of the things I found in conversation with some young adults is that it can be frightening to put the phone down and actually engage someone face to face. Fear is a great inhibitor of paying attention. It can cloud our judgment. It can disconnect us. Fear prevents attention. It prevents us from seeing one another and being seen. It stops up our ears. It has us holding our hands close, shrouding our hearts, closing our minds. And fear is perhaps one of the most potent forms of clickbait that happens in this sort of vampiric world. Maybe I'm being too hard on it, calling it vampiric. I love my phone, and I like to read the news on it every morning. So don't let me sound like I'm being holier than thou. I'm really grateful for it. But it's interesting, my daughter, who is a very young millennial, she loves texting, and I have learned I should never, the culture has changed. It's really appropriate now to text first before calling. You don't ever call someone cold. That's just not a thing. It's been hard to learn that because I like phone calling. My daughter hates it. She finds it frightening. But I feel most blessed and fortunate. She picks up for one person if someone calls, and that's her dad. So. The thing about fear and the thing about looking into the screen rather than being in here and singing and standing, when we're here, we have to breathe. You have to breathe to sing. It's a good reason to be singing together. In Buddhism, one of the reasons that we learn to breathe is to remember to breathe, especially then in those moments when we feel fear and we want to hold our breath. And the problem is that when we're in the grip of fear and we start holding our breath and then we can't think because our brains don't have any oxygen coming to them. How do we overcome fear? How do we overcome fear so that we can be open? How can we overcome fear so that we don't become just another revenue source for someone else? Fear cannot be controlled. And when we seem to have it under control, that's an illusion. Fear is not controlled. It is rather seen. I understand from both Hindu and Buddhist teachings that our first spiritual task is to remember to breathe. Take a breath. And then, both traditions suggest that when we see fear, we see it and accept it. And thereby, it loses its power when we have seen it for what it is. And there's one other big obstacle to attention as a spiritual practice. Our society values our attention a great deal, but it values it almost as though it's a commodity, perhaps a bit like iron you dig out of the earth, or lithium you dig out of the earth to make batteries for our electric cars. But I think about that story about Richard Sandor, who learned what it meant to be an attending physician. In fact, I asked a physician about this story some years ago, and he talked about how he was so grateful that he had worked before the great pressures of insurance. You had a certain amount of time with each patient, and then you had to move on. You could not sit and attend toward the end of his years as a physician. And he wasn't so sure he might have become a physician had he been unable to attend in the way that he so treasured in his years as a doctor. And I don't think it's our medical professionals that are responsible for this inability to attend. It's just that attention takes time. It has great value. It's a rare treat these days when I find a physician truly attends, and I'm grateful for those moments, for that time. But I don't think it should be a luxury. Perhaps our current economic system is not as free as it claims to be. I think our lives have to be measured more than value and efficiency on someone else's behalf. Attention is not an impractical luxury. Is it a luxury to listen to the laughter and cries of the people we love, of the people we join here in community, to listen to the sounds of our infants cooing and discovering the world, of our youth laughing, learning to create community themselves? Is it a luxury to nurture an open heart and mind? To practice the spiritual discipline of attention. It's a lifelong quest. It's not easy to just look fear in the eye. And it may even be harder to hold our own attention as the treasure it is and not let it be stolen from us by others who would like to profit off it. What does it mean to truly see and be seen by one another? Attention requires, and that's why I talked about those little crazy particles, those kaons. Attention requires an indeterminacy of mind and feeling. Like the particles, they don't have a spin yet until we've seen them. And to truly attend, to be seen and to see, also requires that openness, that I'm not going to say quite yet what I think. I'm not sure how I feel yet. And then to see the world and to change it. To receive attention can encourage a human being in the grips of pain to hang on in spite of that pain, as Bruno Bettelheim said. And it's amazing that even tyrants feel they have to give mercy when a prisoner has the attention of thousands or millions of people in the world. Our attention, in fact, has great value and can have great power. To see and be seen, to practice attention, is to know what we love, to understand what is sacred, to remember what is cherished. We can see where our dignity flourishes, how the world can be won and lost in a day. It's a skill that will take all of our lives, but a skill that gives us profound joy and the deepest meanings we will ever encounter. It is the joy of a summer's day given to seeing life itself. It is the joy of holding a child who is just all attention, all being seen. It is the quiet joy and the wisdom our elders have gathered over a lifetime. Even that strange joy of discovering strange laws in small particles. May all that gathers your attention be worthy of your life. I invite you to sing with me now. Hymn number 112, Do You Hear? This is an old hymn from people we might call Quakers or Friends. Yes, please stand in body or spirit. Helps us remember to breathe. This light of community, this beautiful light you hold and make and create together, may it have the attention of your hearts and your minds, showing the world the love that is possible. Attend to it. Your ministry matters. Attend to who's with us, young and old, new and familiar. What you're doing matters more than we know. Go out into the world, share that light. Go in peace, and know we will gather again.